Okay, I think we're live. So hi everyone and
Hi.
welcome to our April genre talk. This week, or this month I should say, we're doing a bit of an author Q&A, particularly for genre related questions. So before we kick off with those, I'll just introduce myself and let Alina introduce herself. So do you want to go first, Alina?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Alina. I'm a fiction writer. I write sci-fi and fantasy, mystery, and romance, contemporary romance. And as you can tell from that, most of what I write is genre fiction. So yes, that's it for now.
And for those who are new to my channel, my name's Nikki and I'm an author and editor. And again, like Alina, I write across a few different genres. So hopefully we'll have a few things to discuss today. So I'm going to get rid of this banner now. We've all said hello. Now, I don't know about you, Alina. I did get a few questions together. I don't know if you've got any particularly that came in.
I created like 2 separate threads in 2 groups, and I doubt there were any. I last checked like 2 days ago. I'll check again now, but I'm pretty sure people liked it and liked the stream, and I took that to mean that if they're live, they're asked their questions then.
Yeah.
But I'm going to check anyway. If not,
Yes.
It's fine. We have plenty to ask each other.
Yes, I've jotted down a few ideas of a few things we can discuss, so we'll have plenty to talk about either way.
Yep.
So perhaps we should start off with something easy. Maybe just in terms of writing and reading, and it might be different from both perspectives, different perspectives, but do you have a favorite genre and why do you like that genre?
I do not have a favorite. I know that sounds really weird, but I just don't. Sorry, that was my YouTube. I'm just fascinated with what I'm currently writing, and then when I move to something else, I'm fascinated with that. I guess I'm a bit into mystery more than anything else right now because it's the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed writing urban fantasy. I've enjoyed writing sci-fi. I've enjoyed writing paranormal romance. I've enjoyed writing dragons and fantasy. And I do love romance in all its forms, and I do love contemporary romance. So I can't really pick a favorite, but if I'm writing something right now, that's what's most appealing to me because it's what I get into. The other day I was Googling how pathologists go about investigating heart attacks. Mm-hmm. So that was great. By the way, I'm the type of person that doesn't go incognito to search for these things. So hi, FBI guy. I'm not murdering anyone, I promise. Yeah, I don't know. What about you? What's your favorite? Or do you have a favorite, first of all?
I think as a reader, probably not. I read fairly widely. Apart from the real chick lit stuff and true crime, I'm not that into. But otherwise, I will give a bit of everything a try. There's obviously some. I do tend to go more for literary fiction and fantasy, perhaps classics. But I do read across all of them. In terms of writing, although I've done a bit of a mix, I probably do like doing the fantasy and paranormal a bit more. And even if I'm playing around with historical, there's usually an element of fantasy or paranormal in the historical as well. So although I have done contemporaries, you'll notice all of my contemporaries are short stories. I find it very hard to come up with ideas for full-length contemporaries. I kind of need that fantastical element to provide my storyline for anything longer than sort of 15,000 words.
Yeah, true. You're right now that I think about it. Yeah, I never had that problem. I mean, it depends. I can't write really short, so it's hard to me to stay under 10,000 words even when I write stories. And sometimes I aim for 15,000 and end up with a 35,000 novella that's the first in a series. It's fine. But I think I have less of a preference as a reader than I have as a writer.
Yeah.
Because as a reader, I write things that I I wouldn't write like historical. I don't know why. I do like I need alternate universe, fantasy, paranormal element for me to write anything that's historical. But that might change in the future, because I do want to. I had an idea at some point in the future, in the past, for me to write in the future a story that's set in Sighișoara in medieval times. Because I feel like it's. I was walking by the streets and I was thinking of someone climbing down a tower and jumping off the walls and sneaking outside, and that spun into an entire setting. But that will definitely be fantasy. Who knows? Maybe I cave in to the general demand for vampire tropes in Romania and do that. Sighișoara is the actual town where Vlad Dracula was. Oh my God! Why do I call him Dracula? Vlad Impaler. And even that is not the proper name. Vlad Tepes. Let's go with that. let's be genuine for once. He was born there. So, by the way, if you're ever in the area when this settles, there's a restaurant in the house where he was born. You can visit the room and you can eat there, but you'll probably need to schedule to book in advance.
Yes.
Because it gets kind of full.
I can imagine all the tourists want to go.
It's probably not the best restaurant in town, but it's the most popular. And kind of on the expensive side. For Romania, everything is kind of a bit slightly cheaper here. So yeah, that's probably like, I'm the opposite of you. You need fantastical things to get through contemporary, and I need fantastical elements and some freedom to play with things to write historical. So, yeah.
Now, do you want me to go through my questions first, or do you want to swap and change between us?
No. Let's just go through them, and then I'll ask my questions, because if I ask a question that's already on your list, kind of makes it difficult to then figure out what hasn't been asked. So I've got probably two questions that will kind of tie into each other. So I'll mention them both at once and we can discuss them together. Now, as everyone knows, Alina writes a huge number of different genres. So my question was, what are the advantages and disadvantages of writing multiple genres, and are some genres easier than others, do you think? Well, the advantages are only for myself, that I feel happy writing all of this. The disadvantages, I mean, let's face it, I made things harder on myself kind of by design. It's perfectly all right to write multiple genres, but it's a smarter choice to start in a genre, develop in that genre, and then switch. If you start with a first in a series, in 3 different series, there are 3 different genres, you're probably shooting yourself in the foot. That said, I don't exactly regret it, because that's how I got here. That's how I learned a lot. And I'm now trying to kind of focus my attention on 2 to 3 genres in a certain period of time, and then, go from there. So the big disadvantage is the marketing thing and the building your audience thing. It's really difficult to go multi-genre from the start and get readers interested. I kind of refined a strategy where I have different stories that I give, or samples that I give away for free and target certain audiences, and then I kind of incorporated everyone in one huge audience that I connect with. And some of them do cross from one genre to the other. It happens more in the LGBT subsections of the genre, because if people read contemporary romance, they might be interested in paranormal romance, and if they like that, they might even try your fantasy, your sci-fi romance. It's not as big of a hop between urban fantasy, like mainstream urban fantasy, and mainstream cozy mysteries and the rest of things I write. But if they really like my cozies, they'll probably try my LGBT mysteries. So it's a bit difficult. It's by no means impossible. I know most people say you should have different pen names for each genre you're in, and that would make things easier when you're doing marketing for a certain book. I never wanted that because I had my own reasons. When I started writing and publishing, it was after a period where I was kind of annoyed with how Romanians were perceived. Like 2 years prior, I'd been traveling through Europe for a month, and I was greeted by not so kind messages in a gas station in Belgium. Well, I was like, I'm spending money here, and you're kind of offending my entire country. And I do get why some of that happens. It's not completely uncalled for, which the past few weeks have kind of proven to us back here at home. But it felt like a really hard thing to deal with. And my way to deal with it was to put my own name on everything I write, which is, as the definition of Romanian names, like my surname is the most popular one in the country. Right. And yeah, like my full name is not uncommon. Like I know I have like 5 or 6 friends called Alina. It's fine.
And we have also your ghost translator on Goodreads.
Oh God, yes. Let's. I have to check that again, don't I?
Okay, so you more prep through. There's a lovely translator out there called Alina Popescu as well, and sometimes her translated works get attached to Alina's Goodreads author page.
Every time she translates something new, it gets attached to it, because the publishers here, they don't even try. They just leave the books to go automatically to Goodreads, and that's annoying me, but whatever. And Nick is kindly asking me with that. So it's a really popular name, and that's why I chose it, but probably not the easiest path I could have taken. Like I said, I could have made things a lot easier on myself, because when I started with the first in an MF urban fantasy series. Then I released Craving Stains, was my first full-length MM story, and that was a gay science fiction. It wasn't even romance. And then I had, I think Brotherly was first, or Strength to Let Go, which was a first in a series of paranormal romances, and then a first in a series of contemporary romances. Yeah. So in the span of a year and a half, I started 4 series, all in different genres, which was, I think at some point in that period, I also released the second book in the urban fantasy series, but then I waited for like 4 years to release book 3. Yes. So that was like, it's because also I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing at that point, and also I wasn't a full-time author. I wasn't paying that much attention, I guess, because my time was limited and I was writing whatever appealed to me the most. And when I started doing this more systematically, I think I changed my approach a bit, and I started to put more books in the series already out there. And now, I mean, I started Just Don't, which is a serial, and I have 7 books out on that one, and 3 more coming, and that will wrap up the series. I started the mystery series, and I have 4 books out right now, with the 5th coming up soon. And even for the cozies, I have prequel and 2 books out, and the 3rd book is about to come. So I've been a bit more consistent, and I try to have no more than 3 to 4 months before new releases. That said, I still, like every couple of months, I still get questions about book 3 in the Flyer Chronicles series, which I haven't released yet. Also, I should say, of things you shouldn't do as a genre fiction author, if you strike gold with something, like say, a medieval alternate universe story that you thought would sell nothing and turns out it's your bestseller ever, probably don't wait for 2.5 years at least to release the second book, especially if you've had the second book written for like 1.5 years. That's not smart. That's not what smart people do. But then again, yeah. How about you, Nikki? What's your take on that topic?
I think it's probably along similar lines to you. I mean, I think there's a slight difference between the two of us in the fact that you are writing full time essentially now, and for me, it's still really more of a sort of higher end hobby. I guess you'd like. I'm not relying on it for any income. So I've been on a bit of a writing slump lately, and it hasn't bothered me because to me, it doesn't matter. I'm not in the middle of any series, and I can take a break, and it's not an issue. But I think for me, like same as you, I write multiple genres just because the different ideas I get, and if I want to write something that I'm into that's interesting for me, so I move between them as the story ideas come to me. I mean, I probably have a stronger focus on the fantasy paranormal, and when I do diverge, it tends to be more for short stories or little one-offs. But I think the different disadvantages, as you say, are definitely from a marketing point of view. And I mean, I have 2 pen names, so I write as Nikki J. Marcus for, I guess, what I would just call non-LGBT stuff. So anything with a male-female heterosexual romance aspect is Nikki J. Marcus, and everything else with LGBT content is Asterodonia. And I did that simply because I know that not everyone enjoys reading the LGBT stories, and if they'd come from my Nikki J. Marcus work, I didn't want to upset people with something completely different. So I do promote them both together. I only have one website, one lot of social media, so people can move between them if they want, but I just use the 2 pen names just to make it clear exactly what the sexual content's going to be about in that, or the romantic content, depending on the erotic level of the story. I mean, for me, the sort of second part of that question, which I'll come back to you on as well in a second, is do you find some genres easier? And I probably, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I think for me, writing something with a bit of a fantasy or paranormal aspect is easier than having to stay in what I'd call a mundane, like contemporary setting. I find it easier to be imaginative and to come up with ideas if I can be completely out there and come up with something completely different than if I'm kind of trapped within a current period of technology and what's going on.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I don't think some genres are easier than others. I think they're very different, and my approach to them is different. I will always have some research to do for any book, but let's face it, if I write paranormal or urban fantasy or contemporary, there's less of that. But when I go to write a mystery, there's a lot more involved in that. There's a different thinking process. There are things I usually research. Of course, I take liberties because I have a fictional unnamed town with city. Well, it's at the edge of city and town. It's a city, former town, and it's kind of has that smaller town vibe to it, even if it's now super big. And I can take liberties with it because it's a police department no one's heard of that works with the PI sometimes because, he's best friends with the detective. And I can do that. I can take liberties with the made up cozy city I invented that has a sheriff for some reason. And they have like brightly colored form-fitting uniforms. Because my main character was pissed off her godmother made her design the outfits when she's not a fashion designer, but you're an artist, deal with it. So I can take those liberties, but I still have to research the topic and at least a little bit about procedure and what the gun would sound like, and that you can cock a revolver, but not an actual gun. Because there's no system for that. And I do go into quite a bit of research for my sci-fi. because even if I don't write hard sci-fi. Let's be honest about that one. I don't write hard sci-fi because it doesn't lend itself to the type of stories I want to write. But that doesn't mean I don't do a lot of research to know where I strayed from the, what's possible.
Yeah.
Like I do use something like subspace or hyperspace because I want there to be faster than light travel, which at this point it's not proven to be a possibility unless we learn how to bend the universe to make distances closer. There's no such thing. So some genres require a bit more forethought, let's say. But other than that, I don't think there's one that's easier than the other, because the contemporary books come with their challenges, because it's very character driven, but there should be some action happening, and you have to think of tone and keep it throughout the series if it's a series and things like that. And sure, there's less research, but because it's just something that happens in the real life, the story and the characters have to be compelling enough for people to keep reading, because otherwise they won't. So so I don't necessarily find one genre easier than the other. It's just a very different approach, and you put more time before for some, while all the other time is put during for others. That's how I see it.
And do you think some genres are more prone to tropes than others?
I think genre fiction...
In general, I'm just thinking in terms of, I guess I mean that in terms of reader expectation. Do you feel there's some that you're writing where you have to include more tropes to appease readers compared to others?
I mean, I don't think you can go trope free, but you don't have to hit all the tropes either. But it helps a lot if you do. I think it's one of those things where you have to know the rules very, very well before you break them. Because let's take romance, for example, there are a lot of tropes there, and how you deal with it, it's your problem. You can't have them all in one book, because you can't have friends to lovers and enemies to lovers and all those nice little pairings in the same book. You can't. You can mix like friends to lovers with an age gap or things like that. But I think there are so many tropes in all the genres where you can choose whatever appeals to you. But there are certain things that you can't omit or take out and still pretend like you're in that genre. Like, you can't have military sci-fi. I mean, I don't know. I read the book, and I started the book and then DNF'd it. It was supposed to be a gay military sci-fi. It was military, and it was something happening in the near future, but they were all on Earth. So it could have been a contemporary thing. The only difference was that it was like 20 years in the future, or 30 years or whatever. It didn't even matter. It didn't feel like a futuristic book. And for me, usually military sci-fi is a bit more about things happening in space. And larger scale works. I don't know. It was an interesting and a smart take on the trope, and that's not why I DNF'd the book. It's just that they kept the trope about the leader of the group that's kind of bending the rules, and his ragtag team that's kind of made up of misfits, but they all fit together and they have great results. And they always have great results. But because it was so earthbound, to me, that felt more like paranormal than anything. It wasn't sci-fi, it was paranormal, because it was a sort of a meta-human thing.
Okay.
It's like saying X-Men is a military sci-fi a bit, which is not. It's not. I wouldn't say it is. So, yeah, you can play with these these type of tropes, but if you change them too much, it won't be the exact genre you want, and I assume people would have an issue with it. Like I had an issue with it, but not because of that. I can get over that. It wasn't what I expected, but I stayed because it seemed like an interesting premise. It just I didn't exactly love the writing, but if I were a hardcore military sci-fi reader, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. How about you? What do you think?
I think probably similar to you, what you've just said. I think you've got to hit some tropes, and I think it's the balance of not trying to overload the work with so many just because you're trying to get more readers by dipping into all these different trope markets, if you like, and you just got to have the right balance for that particular story. And not that you don't worry about the marketing, but not make the marketing the focus of why you've chosen to include them all.
Yeah. I mean, they should fit the story, but I think overall they should fit your character. If a certain trope doesn't work with the characters you've selected, it's going to backfire.
Yeah.
And I tend to err on the side of giving more credit to the readers than I necessarily have to. I think they're smart enough to know their genre well. So I think that helps me stay on track as much as I can. By the way, I have to say this. When you write any subgenre of LGBT fiction, you can take a lot more of the experimental bit and play with. Because it's usually like LGBT sci-fi is a mishmash of a lot of subgenres that are all lumped there together. So readers are kind of used to not reading a very particular genre.
Yes.
Because there isn't as much of it. So you can play around with tropes from different subgenres and call it gay sci-fi, and it will work.
Yeah.
But don't call it gay military sci-fi when it's not, because then it's asking a bit too much even of those readers.
Yeah.
Which is why I chose that example earlier. So yeah, that's my
and that
addition.
might lead into that probably leads in quite well to the last question I've got here, which is to ask about niche genres or kind of genre bending and multi-genre works. And as an author, what are your feelings about taking on something like that that's very niche or that really combines genres that you don't see combined very often?
Did I mention the book I thought would sell no copies? So I had this idea for a story. I had two warrior princes. They were in a medieval setting that was alternate universe. It had no magic though. It had no paranormal elements. It wasn't historical for real because it was alternate universe. It was something that didn't fit right in any genre other than romance. And I always had trouble explaining what it was other than alternate universe, let's say. But it wasn't exactly an alternate universe, but it kind of was because it really resembled Earth, but everything was called different. And it didn't look like any clear continent in the scribble map I drew a while back. Oh my God, I showed that at some point. And it was so, what the hell is this? It looked like a 2-year-old had drawn it, but it made sense to me. So, plus a lot of the lore looks kind of Earth inspired. I used some Chinese gods in the second book that I never released. It's fine. Just the name again. No magic or paranormal or supernatural element. Why would I do that? Because that's easy. And it was just something that didn't entirely fit anywhere. And I had the blast writing that. But then I let it sit for a long, long time before I actually wrapped it up and then had it edited and released. And like I said, I was convinced it wouldn't sell. I was so convinced it wouldn't sell, and then for some reason it did. And I think to this day it's still my bestseller as a standalone book. But you know, that's a risk you always take. It might just flop badly. So I think it can be really fun. I think it can yield really cool results, but you have to be either very passionate about the story and not think about anything else and just write it and then figure out how to market it, or you risk it just flopping. And let's face it, even if it's a hobby, it would really work if you could at least make back the money you put into the book, because editing and covers and formatting and, you know, marketing this all costs a lot. And the point is, if nobody makes any money out of it, a lot of people will stop writing, and I don't think that benefits anyone. Oh, I would like to say something else. This wasn't my first release. I had quite a few books under my belt by then, so I kind of had an audience. I don't know how this would have played off if it was my first book.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also don't know how it would have worked if I would have published it later. I think I just had really great luck to publish it when I did. And because I didn't expect it to do much, I wasn't quite stressed about it either. I was like, I'll put it out there and we'll see what happens. I didn't have a lot writing on it right then. So, you know, that helped. I would still take risks now. I mean, I still took the risk of starting a cozy series in the middle of everything else. So I'm the type of person that if I really want to do something, I will, and then deal with the consequences. But yeah, when it comes to going really niche, you can either strike gold or it can flop. Or it can just do because your loyal readers will buy it. So it kind of depends on audiences as well and how open they are.
Well, I think that was the end of my questions. So,
but you didn't answer this one. You didn't answer this one.
Yeah, I've got to answer this one. Yeah, I guess for me, I haven't really written anything that would definitely be niche or hugely genre combining. I mean, probably the most one would be the paranormal / murder mystery. It's pretty
that's a good one. That's a good one.
Combined. And I really enjoyed doing that. And that's actually, interestingly enough, as with yours, that's actually been the book of mine that sold the best of all of them. So
we're still waiting for book 2 here.
I know everyone keeps asking me about this, but I just need a good idea. I don't want to just push something out that's subpar compared to the first one. So it's not off the cards completely, but we'll see what happens. I guess for me, I would try them, and for me, it would just come down, I think, to if I had a good idea and I was that passionate about the story that I wanted to go ahead and do it, regardless of any thoughts on how it would sell or anything like that.
Yep. It is a risk. It's a big risk. I agree. But even if you're relying on your income, you can do like a double release, like have 2 books released in the same month. So you have your stuff that sells going out into the world, and then this one, and just market both and see how it goes. And that way you're not relying on this one experimental release for your income. That's how I see it. Okay, so I have a question. We've both published quite a bit by now, quite a few books. So based on all that experience you've had with genre fiction, what have you learned from it? What are you doing differently now because of everything you've done in the past?
Oh, I don't know. And I think in some ways, I think our answer is going to be very different on this, again, because of the different ways we're approaching it, that you are doing it as a sort of full-time career, whereas I'm not. And although I've just started branching into a bit of self-publishing again, mainly I've also been with publishers. So although I've done a bit of my own promotion, a lot of the sort of behind the scenes stuff hasn't been mine to worry about. If you see what I mean, which is probably very different than someone who's completely self-publishing and has had to learn the ropes as you've done with the best way to get stuff ready and get it out there. Whereas I've kind of had a backseat on some of it to a certain extent. So I think for me, the way I approached writing a story has possibly changed a little bit. More so with the last couple I've done. I've always been a pantser, but when I did Blood is Forever, I had to plot a little bit. And that has made me, I guess, realise where some weaknesses come in my story writing, at least first drafting. Like I've got 3 works on the go at the moment, and partly I've kind of stopped working on them because I've got other things going on. But partly as well is because I've kind of got to the point in each where I've realised that I've got a really good concept for each of them, but I'm not entirely sure of any of them exactly where my story is heading yet. And that's always just been an inspiration thing for me, and that I've always thought of the ideas in time as I'm writing, whereas I've hit kind of a little bit of an inspiration wall with all of them, which has made me realise I'm very much a concept writer, and I get an idea for a character or a sort of, it's not really a full plot, it's usually an aspect of a plot, and I've just relied on inspiration and imagination to take me through. Whereas having to have done that plotting at least a little bit for Blood is Forever has made me realise that did help in some ways in getting my head around the entire story before I started writing. Whereas before I'd had the initial idea and I'd just go. And luckily it saw me through in previous ones, but it's made me hit a bit of a wall with them this time.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And it bears to say there are writers who are pure pantsers, and if they ever try to plot at all, they won't write the book. Sarah is like that, and I like to call it a discovery writer. So Sarah Scharnweber here on YouTube, it's that type of writer. If she ever plans anything or knows what's going to happen in the future of the book, she won't write it. It's her process, and there's nothing wrong with it. But as you said, that creates a lot more work for the editing phase. I have a very different approach to writing. I always come up with a concept as well. It's either a scene between 2 characters, a setting, or a character and his or her personality. And then I stay on it, and I stew and I think, and I let it grow in my head until I have a clear vision, like I can visually see them going from start to finish. I don't see a complete story, a complete journey, but I see like the main points. Yes. And in the past, that was enough for me to start writing, which worked most times. In some cases, I'd have to adapt my story because the more I discovered the characters, the more certain things didn't work for them.
Yes.
But I realized I'm not a pure discovery writer. A bit of plot helps me, especially when I write mysteries. And I got to my sweet spot, which is having a couple of sentences per chapter.
Yep.
So I don't think I'm pretty sure most of my outlines are 1,000 to 2,000 words tops, which is a very short one. But that helps me because I do it chapter by chapter. And because like you, I sometimes work on multiple projects. When I switch between them, I don't have to waste that much time figuring out what the hell I was doing and what am I supposed to write next. That comes with the approach to writing part. I've also, because like you said, I've tried to make this a full-time career. Even if it's not my only thing that I do, and right now it's not, because I want to work on other things as well. I want to start a cover design business, because I love doing it. And I also have some things on the side because, hey, life happened. I broke my leg. I didn't work for a year and a half. How well do you think that went? But my main career is still writing, and I approach it like I want to build it up so it's my only career. So that's my full-time job. I have other side jobs. That's the long-winded explanation of it. Because of that, I had to learn from my mistakes, and now I hoard books a bit. That's a good way of saying it. Like, if I need to release certain books and I want to work on others, I do work on them, but I just don't release them. I don't stop myself from releasing what I'm supposed to release what I want to, because then I can't follow through, and it's disappointing for readers. And unfortunately, right now, because of everything that's going on, there's a limit to how much I can write. I found it really hard over the past couple of months because things happened and they changed a lot, and there's a lot more on my plate now as the only person who leaves the house.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the strategy I found. I hoard books and I release them when the right time to release them comes. And I also now do a lot of testing, which is the reason why I'm doing the Battle of the Books series in the first place, because I want to try to see how things go with very different strategies to release books, promote books, different concepts, but kind of similar main genre, because they're both gay romance.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of testing and planning and thinking ahead involved. I don't always follow through with my plans because things change. I have to adapt. So, but yeah, I'm way more strategic about it now than I was when I started. That's the biggest change I experienced over the last 6 or so years of publishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I had another question. It flew right out of my mind while we were talking about it. Oh yeah, no, I remember. We both write a fairly large number of genres. Do you see yourself adding more in the future, or just doing more of a mishmash like you did with Blood is Forever?
Probably if I went any direction, I'd do more of those mixed ones. I mean, although there's a murder mystery element to Blood is Forever, I don't see myself really launching into like the mysteries and the cozy mysteries like you're writing. I just don't think I have the right mindset for creating those kind of stories. But I would definitely like to play around with the mixed genres a bit more, do some more historical paranormal stuff, some more historical fantasy. I'm too much of an completely anti-science. Actually, that's not the way to say it, really. Not that I'm against science, but I've just never been any good at the math science side of stuff at school. So the idea of having to research something to do like a full-on sci-fi is just like a bit beyond me. My physics teacher would have a fit if he thought I was going to do anything like that. So I'm not really tempted in that direction either. So I think kind of sticking with that sort of historical, sometimes the paranormal fantasy is probably where I'll stay, but maybe just try and mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I'm sort of dabbling in pure fantasy right now. Not sure if it's going to be epic or anything like that, but it will have dragons in it. But even that's not exactly new, because I have been writing Magic Unleashed on my blog. But I think I'm going to do a lot more mixes, like depending on how Sins of the Father goes, which is my first gay romance, mystery romance book. So it's not mystery, it's not romance, it's mystery romance. They're both just as important in the plot. And depending on how that goes, I might write more of that, as opposed to my Owl Investigation series, where the romance plot is secondary to the mystery.
Yeah.
And I also want to write, I still am researching for that one though. It's a mystery sci-fi. The whole setting is a post-scarcity city. So we've reached a point where scarcity is no longer a thing. Everything is fully available, and humanity
Not toilet paper, Alina.
Yes, even toilet paper. Not that they use toilet paper at that point. I'm pretty sure the Japanese-style toilets are way more futuristic, and they just sit there for a few minutes and then they're clean and dry and everything. But it's a post-scarcity society, and the biggest problem humanity has, it's boredom and a lack of meaning and trouble finding meaning. And it's a world where entertainment is the biggest driver of everything, because we would all need something to distract us for how useless we feel, because we have no purpose anymore when everything is handed to us. And I have this concept for investigative duo, police officer and his android style partner. But the point is that the police force is mainly built to look good. So it's pretty much cops in tights roaming the streets, because there's no real crime, or there didn't used to be. But there starts to be a spike in crime because people are just looking for a thrill.
Yeah.
So if they can't get any other thrills, why not commit to a life of crime? That's the setting for the book.
Listening to this premise, Lena, I'm waiting for you to sell the rights to like a Korean drama company, because I'm just like picturing that as like an awesome K-drama.
No. No, I don't think that's going to happen. It would be cool, but also I don't think a Korean cast would fit the image I have. Not a fully Korean. I mean, it would be like, this can't be like a very specific race that's casted, because this is the whole point of this, is that it's a blend of all races. There's no more racial tension at that point, so there's not even that to draw any sort of thrill from. For people who are just so damn bored, there's no issue, there's no problem you have to face in life. That's the whole premise. So I would need a very multicultural cast.
Bit of a Sense8 approach.
Sort of, yes, but more like all blended together. I don't think there would be any pure race at that point, as in purely Asian, or although that doesn't exist anymore, or black and white and not brown. That doesn't exist anymore. It's mostly multiracial at that point.
Yes.
Because if we stop getting over ourselves, that's the direction we're going in anyway, and that's how I see the world. So yeah, it would be a bit difficult to cast that, but you can always make amends with a Sense8 sort of a cast. But yeah, that's what I'm going towards. So more mixing and blending, I guess. I don't feel like I need to extend, like, I cover sci-fi and fantasy, where you have urban fantasy, paranormal, sci-fi, fantasy, mystery, and romance. Like, I got so many genres, I don't need to add any more. But variations on the genres I cover, yeah, sure. I see myself doing that in the future. But again, doing it in a more consistent approach. It's like maybe not start 3, 4, 5 different series with a book one and then make people wait for years. I don't plan on doing that. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I'm just not planning on doing it. So yeah, I think we've covered kind of all the topics we wanted to discuss, because some of the questions I wanted to ask you asked for me. So yeah. See, I was right. I was right about not switching in between us, because we would have ended up with the same questions. So yeah, if there are any future questions on this, I'm sure we'll answer them in the comments as they come, if they come. We kind of covered a lot, though.
Yes, so we'll be back on Alina's channel next month. Though I realised that we still haven't actually made a decision on the book, have we? And is it Claire's fault? Are we blaming Claire?
Yeah, it's always Claire's fault. So now, publicly shaming Claire. What we want to do is read the first book in her Charlie Davis series as our mystery read. Claire is in the middle of rewriting that book and would like us to read the new book, which I totally get. She's dragging her feet though. So I will talk to her this week and figure out if she's releasing it anytime soon. And if not, we'll switch genres and do another genre next month on my channel. Whatever it is, we'll decide in the next week. And I don't know if Nikki has the time to do that, but I will definitely do a video announcement on my channel.
Yeah, if I don't do a video, we can at least put it on my Twitter or something like that. So yeah, just watch my social media and we'll announce it between us.
Watch our social media basically, and we'll announce what the next read is, and hope you'll join us and see how it goes. I'm sure a lot of people will want to join in for the rewrite of Charlie's first book, because Charlie is such a great character, and we've seen bits of the book, and I do get why she's rewriting it. It's way better than the first one, although I really love the first one enough to binge through the whole series. But I think, oh yeah, look, before we go, I have to ask this, because the whole Claire conversation spiked this. Would you ever go back and rewrite any of your genre fiction books now that you're better at everything?
Well, I guess we are really with Ragnarok, aren't we? Yes, one of my earliest works, which is 5 years ago now, was the Ragnarok Chronicles, which was a sort of 700-page fantasy story that I'd originally intended as a trilogy, but ended up releasing as a single book. And when I go back and read that now, I think my writing style has definitely improved. And because it's a story that's still very close to my heart of all the things I've written, I wanted to re-release it. So I've been editing that, and Alina and I are going to work on some covers. So hopefully later this year, we'll be bringing that out, this time in the original intended trilogy format. Mm-hmm. So I haven't changed the story. It's just to improve the sort of style of the prose, really. Cutting out some of the waffle. I did waffle a bit. I was a bit verbose in the first version. So it's basically just slightly trimmed down, just improved that conciseness of the language, I guess. In terms of others, as I'm sort of looking to maybe self-publish some older short stories again, obviously I will go through and tweak them a little bit as I go. But I think probably Ragnarok's the one that would have had the biggest cut, because I have trimmed something like 10,000 words off each of the 3 books.
It was a really long book though, so I get why you would trim it down a bit. So I did something similar to what you're doing to your stories. I did a deep edit for my first 2 books in the Bad Blood series, my first urban fantasy, but it was just an edit. I didn't rewrite, and I think I might. For the 3rd book, I'm not going to do anything. That was written way later. I edited it with Lindsay, because my 2 editors right now, for those of you who don't know, are Nikki for some stuff, Lindsay for some stuff, and actually there's a 3rd one who's Mike, who edits the mysteries. But that's the only people I work with. I don't look elsewhere because we've got the flow at this point, and I trust them basically. And the 3rd book was done with Lindsay, the edit, and it was written in 2017, I think. So it was pretty close to now. I had a very different style. I feel like I need to update the 1st book a bit, and maybe the 2nd, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I think book 2 went through enough changes while I edited it, but I'm not really sure about book 1. I need to let a bit more time pass and give it another read and decide if I just want to edit some more and tweak some more, or I just need to do a rewrite. Yeah. But that would be the only one for me now, because everything else was released later on when I'd already sort of matured my process a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was all. Also, look out for the announcement for the book of the month for the May read along. For genre
Yeah,
fiction.
and we'll confirm the date and everything at the same time. We'll do a
Yeah.
little announcement for the date and whatever we're going to be reading.
Yeah. And I have to bug Claire again about the book. That might give me just a slight little thrill. Yep.
Okay, I think we're about done. Is there anything you wanted to say or announce to finish off, Alina?
Sure. Smashwords is still having their authors give back sale, and all my books on that platform are either 30 or 60% off, so go check them out. My fourth owl investigation mystery, oh my god, The Worst Man I Never Knew, is out right now. Book 5 is up for pre-order, and you should definitely check them out.
Excellent.
Also follow me on YouTube, like subscribe if you could. I have a channel. Sorry,
Yes,
I'm rusty.
That's okay. The link to that is below to Alina's channel, so do have a look, because that's where we'll be in May as well. I have just a short story new release to share, which Alina did the lovely cover for me for. So do have a look at that. It's called Pirates of Romance, and it's available on all the usual ebook platforms. It's just sort of a 10,000 word contemporary romance short story. So do have a look at that one. And that's all I've got to announce at present. So we will say goodbye for now, but we'll see you again on Alina's channel next month together. And I'm sure we'll both be posting videos in the meantime as well. So do check out our channels for those. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.